as I show you these artists that I admire so much. I hope you see some old friends and I introduce you to maybe some new ones. So as we get into these paintings, this is not an exhaustive list. I have many influences and many artists I love, but I just want to whet our palate, kind of get us into get us in the mood, get us excited about painting and interested in the class. So I just want to talk about a few of my favorites, and we'll just talk a few details of each one. We'll get more in depth as we move on into the lessons. So let's start with Dean Cornwell. Dean Cornwell is an early American illustrator with an incredible sense of design. He has great paint application. One thing we'll be talking about in an upcoming lecture will be value grouping, which this is a great example of it, is how we can group our values into a beautiful abstract design. Frederick Waugh, another great design. Watch how he leads you through this painting. You come in through the bottom, leads you to the right around the rock, up the dark part of the curve of the wave, into the clouds, and look how the clouds bring you to the right part of the painting and back down. He also has great color control, and look at the material texture. Water is water, sky is sky, and look at the rock, the solidity of that rock, and even that it looks wet. Bob Kuhn, I love his designs. His use of elements to guide you around the painting, how he moves you around, and then his use of color bands to create a more abstracted design and how he handles environments. Anders Zorn is someone who is well known for his limited palette, and that is one thing for all of us to gather in creativity and in paint, as in painting, is we always want to be limitless, but limits actually free us, and he's a great example. By holding this limited palette, he is so free in making these beautiful paintings. Okay, here's a trivia. Extra bonus points if you know who this is. It might surprise you. You might know the artist and not know who it is. It is Nikolai Fechin. So if you're familiar, if you're not, look him up. His oil paintings are really lost and found edges and beautiful designs. But this one, I was given a book by a gallery once, and it was all in Russian, and it had his early works, and this was one of his preliminary sketches. And I think it's so neat to see how he is controlling those elements and the value pattern, even though there's a lot of chaos, the way he organizes it to get you to look where he wants. And of course, Edgar Payne. So if you don't have, I highly recommend his book on compositional painting. It is dense in knowledge. A lot of meat in that book, not a lot of filler. So very dense reading, but great painter and a wonderful designer. And Edgar Payne also is a great example of someone who will take motifs and run with them, taking his motifs that he repeats over and over again, his mountain paintings, his desert paintings, the paintings of these boats in France, paintings of the ocean, and how he uses those only as a departure point to come up with interesting abstract design. Lesnikov, beautiful analogous painting, holding that color in that analogous range. And look how he's handling in that the grouping of his values, but not only working with large shape, medium shape, small shape, looking at the lyrical brushwork that he gets in those branches and how they work in the design coupled with those large shapes. Thayer, another example of, you feel like the limits are, you don't want limits, but they actually are freeing. This painting, he is so controlled in his color harmonies, but that control has created this beautiful grays, and gray is this elegant, beautiful color. The way he's handled his edges, look at the back of the table on the right, how it's soft and lost, and the way he's done that in some of the flowers. But a lot of times we want to paint a scene with flowers in it and just put every pigment in the world, and how much beauty it has by his control. Harvey Dunn, this is somebody I am definitely interested in, and for a big reason. Not only do I love his work, but he was the teacher of Dean Cornwell. So anyone who is teaching Dean Cornwell, I want to listen up and learn from. Harvey Dunn has a book out. It's a coffee table book. I highly recommend it. The back of the book has notes from his students of his lectures, and they are brilliant, and I highly recommend that. This is a beautiful painting by Harvey Dunn. Joaquin Sorolla, known for his beautiful sense of light and getting outside in vibrant paintings, working on location with these gigantic paintings. This is one of the ones he did for the Hispanic Society. It was painted over a century ago. His sense of design and difficult subject matter. Here's an interesting story with this painting is I had the great opportunity about a year and a half ago for his Joaquin Sorolla's great-granddaughter came to my studio from Spain, and she posed and modeled for me and a few other artists. And she brought with her one of the costumes from this painting, one of those green dresses. And we had the opportunity to paint her in that, and it was, what a memory. And afterwards, we all went to lunch, and she told us stories about her great-grandfather, and the chance to learn and take in little bits of information was just a special thing. As you know, as artists, sometimes it's a detective story. We take a little piece from there and a little piece from there, and we try to group it all together to become the artist that we want to be. Gustav Klimt. On all the paintings I'm showing here, Klimt would probably be the one that I would most be interested in having in my home, or a Dean Cornwell. I think Klimt's sense of design and his uniqueness is so beautiful, and it's something to aspire to. Maynard Dixon, there's so many great Maynard Dixon paintings, but in this, just one element is what our camera does versus a painting. If this was a photograph of this scene, either your mountains would be blown out or your foreground would be blown out. But the eye is so much more powerful and can grasp this. It's one big part about painting on location is your better understanding of how much light there is in the shadows and how much you can bring down the value in the distance while still making it work as one whole unified subject. So this one, maybe you know, maybe you don't. I know you probably know the artist, but John Singer Sargent. I had the opportunity to see this painting. It travels a lot, but its permanent home is the War Memorial Museum in London. And if you ever get to see it in person, there is a lot of interesting things about this painting. But the gap between the group of soldiers walking, if you take a look and you see this painting is giant. And if you ever get to see it in person and you can walk up to this painting, or you ever get high enough quality image that you can zoom in all this destruction and despair and difficulty of the gassing of the soldiers in war, in the distance, in the sunlight, is soccer players in full uniform playing a soccer game. That sense of storytelling, it's mind-blowing. It's that extra. Like anyone who sees this painting ever is going to first just grasp, oh, it's about despair. But I actually believe, surrounded by despair, it is a painting about hope. It's one thing to, as a goal as a painter, is are we doing that extra? Are we just having this one statement, or are we giving that little extra gift? One of my teachers in art school told me that when you paint, John, people are seeing your paintings from a distance, right? They're walking across. Only artists, us artists will walk into a gallery and have our nose to the painting. But, an average person walking into a gallery or a museum is seeing your painting from a distance. And he said, grab someone's attention with your painting and get them to walk across the room. Once they've come up to your painting, reward them for the trip. And this is one of those great examples in this painting, is when I came up and close to this painting, John Singer Sargent rewarded me for that trip and really gave me a gift. Nikolai Baskakov. I love this painting. This painting is so awesome. You look at it, it makes you happy, right? The design and the storytelling is so excellent. But let's look at that on this one. You know that the woman on the right has told a joke, and the women on the left are totally cracking up about it. But think of the storytelling that is used here, that you understand who told the joke and who's the painting about. Well, if you look, the women on the left are grouped, the one on the right is separated. The color and value, look at how much more pop there is in the color and the value, because it's been pushed more right around her head, lets you know she's the one you're supposed to focus on. You have that fence that comes across right about her eye level to look at her eyes. Now in a design, we'll follow people's eyes around. You follow her eyes over to the left, the woman, you come down the interesting tangent down the left side, and it sends you back. This is a great painting to study for design and how to tell a story. John Carlson, if you don't own his book, another book I highly recommend, John Carlson's Landscape Painting. Quick read, very inexpensive book. It's a very concise book that you'll be able to learn so much about landscape painting. Armin Hansen, another California Impressionist, and this scene of the salmon trawlers I just love the design. If you ever get to see one of his in person, a lot of the paint application I don't even understand. I look at it, especially in the water and how he applies it. I'm not even sure how he does it. Edwin Austin Abbey. We'll be talking a lot about him in this class with the incredible way he creates his environments. And I don't want to end. We certainly will talk about other artists in this class who are exciting and we can certainly learn from. This is Edward Compton. This is a great example of depth in a painting and creating atmosphere and setting the mood in this environment. Well, I hope as we've looked at these that you maybe have found a couple new friends to inspire, and let's move on.